My step-parent and birth father told me to never show up again, so I smirked and retrieved what was rightfully mine while they kept threatening me. Be me, 36-year-old Marcus. This is going to be really long, but I need to get this off my chest. Been sitting on this for months now, and honestly, I'm still processing it all. TLDR at the bottom, but seriously, the details matter here. Because this whole thing is so much deeper than just a family fight. So anyway, I'm Marcus, 36 male. I've been the stable one in my family for as long as I can remember. While my older sister Vanessa, 38 female, was starting and failing businesses every other year. First it was some MLM skincare thing, then a boutique that lasted 6 months, then some online marketing company that never got off the ground. And my younger brother Tyler, 31 male, was blowing through his college fund. Spring break trips in a freaking Mustang convertible. I was just working, nothing glamorous. I'm a production manager at a mid-size electronics manufacturing company in Michigan. We make circuit boards mostly for automotive and tech companies. Started on the floor right out of high school. Worked my way up over 18 years. Not rich by any means, but comfortable. Good benefits, steady paycheck, profit sharing, decent 401k match. You know, the drill. I live in a small rental house about 25 minutes from work. Drive a paid-off Toyota Camry. My biggest expense is probably my dog Rex's vet bills. I'm not flashy, never have been. My idea of splurging is getting the name brand pasta instead of the store brand. But apparently being financially responsible makes you the family bank. The call came on a Thursday night in October. I was just getting home from a particularly brutal shift. We'd had issues with one of our main production lines. Some sensor kept throwing error codes. I'd stayed late to make sure we were back on track for the morning. My shift starts at 5:30 a.m., so staying until 8:30 p.m. meant I was looking at maybe 6 hours of sleep if I was lucky. I was tired as hell. Looking forward to heating up some leftover Chinese food. Maybe watching an episode of Breaking Bad before crashing. I'd just gotten Rex fed when my phone rang. Mom. The caller ID still said Mom because I'd never bothered changing it from when I was younger. Still thought hearts on contact names weren't stupid. Now my mom calling me isn't unusual. She calls me maybe twice a week, usually about something she needs help with. Computer acting up again because she clicked on some Facebook ad that installed malware. Can't figure out how to work the new dishwasher Dad bought without consulting her. Sometimes it's money stuff. Asking if I can cover this bill or that emergency. The water heater died. The car needs new brakes. Tyler needs help with rent again. I always do it. It's just easier than dealing with the guilt trip and the passive-aggressive comments at family gatherings if I say no. But this call was different from the first word. Her voice was cold, like Arctic cold. No, hi honey, how was your day? No asking about work or whether I'd eaten dinner. No small talk about the weather or complaints about her neighbors. Just straight to the point in this clipped dismissive tone. I'd never heard her use with me before. Don't bother coming for Thanksgiving, she said. Not even a question or a request. Just a flat statement like she was telling me not to bother picking up milk on the way home. I was genuinely confused at first. Like my brain couldn't process what she just said. What? Why not? We're keeping it small this year. Just immediate family. Now I should mention here that I am immediate family. I'm their middle child. I've never missed a Thanksgiving. Hell, I've driven through snowstorms to make sure I was there on time. I've rearranged the work schedules. I've turned down invitations from friends and my girlfriend Jessica's family. But apparently that didn't matter anymore. Mom, what's going on? Did I do something wrong? We just think it's better if you don't come. You've been difficult lately. Difficult. That word hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. You know what had been difficult? Me asking why their grocery bill was consistently over $900 a month, when there's only 2 of them living in the house. Me questioning why Dad needed to fill up his truck 3 times a week, when he's supposedly retired and doesn't drive anywhere except the grocery store and the hardware store. Me wondering out loud why they needed me to cover their mortgage payment again last month, when Dad claimed his pension check was coming through any day now. For the 3rd time this year, me asking why Vanessa needed another $3,500 loan for her latest business venture, when the last 2 had failed spectacularly, and she'd never paid back a dime of the money I'd given her before. Me pointing out that Tyler's rent in that expensive downtown apartment was more than my mortgage would be if I actually had a mortgage. Instead of throwing money at my parents every month, but asking questions about where my money was going made me difficult. Mom, I don't understand. What do you mean difficult? You know exactly what I mean, Marcus. She only called me Marcus when she was really pissed. You've been questioning everything, acting like we're trying to take advantage of you. We raised you better than that. The manipulation was so obvious it actually made me angry. I'm not questioning everything. I'm asking reasonable questions about finances. We don't need to justify our expenses to you. When I'm paying for them, yeah, you actually do. The silence on the other end was thick and uncomfortable. I could hear the TV in the background, some game show Dad always watched during dinner. Finally, she spoke again, and her voice was even colder than before. If that's how you feel, then maybe it's better if you just stay home. So I did something I'd never done before in my entire life. Instead of apologizing, instead of asking what I could do to fix things, instead of immediately offering to cover some bill to get back in their good graces, I just said, okay, then don't bother using my card anymore. The silence on the other end was deafening. You could practically hear her brain trying to process what I just said. In 36 years, I had never, not once, told my parents no about money. Never set a boundary, never pushed back on anything financial. What do you mean, she finally asked. And for the first time in the conversation, she sounded uncertain, shaky even. I mean exactly what I said. If I'm too difficult to have at Thanksgiving dinner, then you're too difficult to keep supporting financially. Marcus, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. But the mortgage is your mortgage on your house that you live in. Marcus, I hung up. My hands were actually shaking. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter, just stared at it for probably 10 minutes, waiting for it to ring again. But it didn't. I sat down at my kitchen table and just stared at the wall, trying to process what had just happened. In that moment, something shifted inside my chest. Like I literally felt it, this weight I'd been carrying for years, this constant low-level anxiety about money, about the next crisis, and about disappointing my family, just loosened a little. It was still there, but for the first time in forever, it felt manageable. I opened that beer and sat on my couch with Rex, who seemed to sense something was different, because he kept looking at me with those concerned dog eyes. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could actually breathe. After that call, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that word difficult. The more I rolled it around in my head, the angrier I got. Not the explosive yelling kind of angry, but the cold calculating kind. The kind that makes you start looking at things really, really carefully. So I did what any reasonable person would do at 1:30 a.m. on a Friday morning, when they can't sleep and their family just kicked them in the teeth. I logged into my online banking and started going through statements, all of them going back years. What I found was so much worse than I thought. See, it had started small about 6 years ago. Dad's hours got cut at the warehouse where he'd worked for 25 years. Some corporate restructuring bullshit where they laid off all the older guys and replaced them with younger workers at half the pay. They couldn't make their mortgage payment that month. Just 1 month, they said, just until Dad found something else or until his unemployment kicked in. So I helped $1,903. I remember the exact amount, because I had to move some money around from my savings to cover it. But Dad never found something else. Or rather, he found part-time work here and there. A few shifts at Lowe's, some seasonal work during the holidays. But never anything steady. Never anything that paid what he'd been making. And somehow, 1 month turned into 2, then 6. Then just always, I started seeing a pattern in my bank statements that made my stomach turn. Every month like clockwork. $123 for the mortgage payment. Always on the 30th of the month because that's when it was due. $450 to $650 for groceries, which seemed insane until I realized they were shopping exclusively at the fancy organic place across town, instead of the regular supermarket where normal people shop. $275 to $325 for utilities every month, which also seemed high until I remembered that Dad kept the house at 75 degrees year-round, and Mom ran the central air like she was trying to freeze the place solid. Gas for Dad's truck usually $225 to $275 a month, which makes no sense for a retired guy who supposedly only drives to the store and the doctor appointments. Car repairs always something new. Tires, brake work, oil changes. Mysterious engine problems that always seemed to cost exactly what I could afford to give them at the time. Then there were the bigger hits. Vanessa's business loans that she defaulted on, which somehow became my responsibility. The first one was $8,500 for inventory for her boutique. The second was $13,000 for marketing and website development for her online business. The third was $3,800 for equipment for some consulting thing she was trying to start. Tyler's tuition when his financial aid didn't come through. $6,500 per semester for 3 years. Except I found out later that he'd never even applied for financial aid. He'd just spent his college fund on that stupid car and spring break trips to Panama City Beach. Looking at my statements, calculating everything over and over, because I couldn't believe the numbers. I figured out that over the past 6 years, I'd given my parents and siblings approximately $138,000. Not lent, given, because they never paid any of it back. And after the first few times, I stopped even pretending it was a loan. Under $38,000. I make good money for Michigan. About $82,000 a year with overtime and profit sharing. But I'm not rich. That was money that could have gone toward a house for Jessica and me. Money that could have been invested in my 401k. Money that could have been our future, our security, our children's college funds. And they called me difficult for asking questions about it. But it got worse. I couldn't sleep. So I kept going through my emails, trying to piece together when everything had started snowballing. That's when I noticed something odd in my Gmail search results. There was this email thread from my sister that I'd been CC'd on by accident back in March. At the time, I just skimmed it. Something about coordinating Dad's birthday and archived it without thinking. But the subject line nagged at me now. Retiming. I pulled it up. The email wasn't about Dad's birthday at all. It was Vanessa responding to something Mom had sent her. Yeah, you're probably right about spacing it out. Marcus seemed a little weird when I asked about the car repair money, right after you guys got the furnace thing. Maybe I should wait until next month to bring up Tyler's books. Or should Mom ask instead? My stomach dropped. I scrolled up to see Mom's original message. I think we need to be more careful about timing. Marcus has been asking more questions lately, especially about the receipts. Vanessa, can you handle the textbook thing? You know how he is with educational expenses. You know how he is. Like I was some predictable machine they'd figured out how to operate. I sat there staring at my phone screen. This wasn't some elaborate conspiracy. It was just casual coordination. Almost worse somehow. Like managing me was just another item on their family to-do list. I started searching for other emails, found a group text I'd been left off from last summer, where Tyler had asked, "Did someone already hit up Marcus this month? Don't want to overlap." Found Vanessa asking Mom what excuse worked for the insurance thing. Marcus is asking about my car again. None of it was malicious exactly. They weren't cackling villains plotting my downfall. They were just treating me like a resource that needed to be managed efficiently. The casual way they discussed it made it worse somehow. Like it never occurred to them that what they were doing was wrong. The worst part was finding an email where Mom told Vanessa, "Don't mention the vacation to Marcus. He's been stressed about money lately and might take it the wrong way." They'd gone to Lake Michigan for a long weekend, posted pictures all over Facebook while I was sending Tyler his emergency textbook money and worrying about whether I could afford to fix my own car's brake pads. I closed my laptop and just sat there in my kitchen. No dramatic breakdown, no running to the bathroom, just this hollow sinking feeling as I realized that my family had been handling me for years, and I'd been so eager to help that I'd never even noticed. I didn't do anything rash that's not my style. And frankly, after seeing how calculating my family had been, I decided to beat them at their own game instead. I spent the next week documenting everything, every payment, every emergency, every lie I could prove with email evidence or bank records. I made spreadsheets that would make a forensic accountant weep with joy. Date, amount, stated reason, actual purpose when I could determine it. Follow-up requests and whether there had been any attempt at repayment. The pattern was so clear, it was almost funny. See, the thing about supporting someone financially for 6 years is that you become part of their infrastructure. I wasn't just paying bills. I was literally integrated into their financial system. The mortgage was set up on autopay from my checking account. Same with their gas and electric. They had a credit card that was linked to my account for overdraft protection. Hell, they were on my Costco membership, my Amazon Prime, my Netflix account. They'd built their entire lifestyle around me, and they were so confident in their control that they'd gotten sloppy about hiding it. I started by opening new accounts at a completely different bank across town, moved my direct deposit there, changed all my passwords to things they couldn't guess, set up two-factor authentication on everything. I wanted clean separation before I pulled the trigger. Then I did something that felt petty at the time, but turned out to be genius. I started keeping detailed records of every conversation with my family. Jessica thought I was being paranoid when she caught me writing notes after phone calls. But I had this feeling things were gonna get ugly. and I wanted proof of exactly what was said and when. Good thing I did because my mom called me that Monday. "Honey," she said, and I could immediately tell she was using her sweet manipulative voice, the one she used when she wanted something. "I've been thinking about Thanksgiving, and maybe your father and I were too hasty." Oh, I kept my voice neutral while I grabbed a pen and notepad. "Your father and I talked it over, and we think you should come after all. We're family after all, and family sticks together through thick and thin." Now, a week earlier, I might have been relieved. I might have apologized for being difficult and shown up with flowers and wine, grateful to be back in their good graces. But now, I could hear exactly what she was really saying. "We realized we need your money more than we need our pride." "What changed your mind?" I asked, scribbling notes. We miss you, sweetheart. And Thanksgiving isn't the same without all our kids there. Vanessa and Tyler will be there, and it would just break my heart if you weren't. All our kids, like, I was still 12 years old and lived in their house." "That's nice to hear, Mom, but I've already made other plans." Silence, I could practically hear her brain recalculating. "What other plans?" "Jessica's family invited me to Grand Rapids. Her aunt is hosting. This year should be nice, quiet." More silence. When she spoke again, her voice was tighter. "Well, you could still come to ours for lunch and then go there for dinner." The desperation was starting to show. "I don't think so, Mom, but thanks for the invitation." "What about Christmas then? Surely you'll be home for Christmas." And there it was. She wasn't apologizing for calling me difficult. She wasn't acknowledging that she'd uninvited me from Thanksgiving. She was just trying to reel me back in for the next financial milestone. "We'll see," I said. "Marcus, I don't understand what's gotten into you lately. This isn't like you. Maybe it is like me. Maybe you just never bothered to find out." In another long silence. "Your father and I have been talking, and we think maybe you're stressed about money. If you're having trouble, we can—" "I'm not having trouble, Mom." "Then what is this about?" I almost told her right then. Almost laid out everything I discovered. All the emails, all the manipulation. But something held me back. Some instinct that told me this wasn't the time yet. "I just think it's time for me to focus on my own life for a while." "What does that mean?" "It means exactly what it sounds like." We hung up a few minutes later, and I sat there looking at my notes. She'd tried 5 different manipulation tactics in one 10-minute conversation. Guilt about family. False urgency about holidays. Offering help to make me feel indebted. Questioning my mental state. Demanding explanations like she was entitled to them. It was like watching a masterclass in emotional manipulation, and I'd been falling for it for years. That night, I finalized my plan. I was going to cut them off completely, but I was going to do it smart. No dramatic confrontation where they could turn me into the bad guy. No angry phone calls they could record and play for relatives. Just stop. The beauty of being the one who pays all the bills is that you have all the account information. You know exactly when things are due. You know which payments are automatic and which ones they have to think about. You know their patterns and their backup plans. I scheduled everything to stop the day after Thanksgiving. It seemed poetic somehow. They didn't want me at Thanksgiving. Fine, they could have their turkey dinner. And then they could figure out how to pay for the gas that cooked it. Thanksgiving came and went, and honestly, it was the most relaxed Thanksgiving I'd had in years. Jessica and I drove up to Grand Rapids and spent the day with her family, who are just normal. They asked about my work and actually listened to the answers. They told funny stories about Jessica as a kid. Her mom showed me photo albums. Her dad and I watched football and talked about the Lions' latest catastrophic season. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody guilt-tripped me about family obligations. Nobody expected me to fix their problems or manage their emotions. It was revolutionary. Jessica's mom asked about my family, and I just said, we'd had a scheduling conflict this year. Jessica squeezed my hand under the table. She knew what was really going on, and she supported me 100%. That meant everything. We drove home Thursday night, and I slept better than I had in weeks. Friday morning, I woke up early and executed my plan. First, I canceled the mortgage auto-pay. Just logged into the bank website and deleted the recurring payment. Done. Then I called the electric company and removed my card from their account. Same with the gas company. The customer service rep asked if I wanted to transfer the account to someone else. And I said no, just remove my payment information. Then I called the credit card company and removed my checking account as backup payment. The representative tried to talk me out of it, warning me about over-limit fees and declined payments. And I told her that was exactly the point. I canceled their gas cards, 2 of them both in my name, for emergencies that had become routine grocery runs. I removed them from my Costco membership, from my Amazon Prime account, I even canceled the Netflix subscription they'd been using on their smart TV. The whole thing took about an hour and a half. Then I sat back and waited. Saturday, nothing. They probably hadn't tried to use any cards yet, and none of their bills were due for another week. Sunday, nothing though. I did notice Dad had been online playing that stupid Facebook farming game, so the internet was still working. Monday morning, I got a text from Dad at 11:45 a.m. Hey son, something's wrong with the bank website. Tried to check the mortgage payment and it's not showing up. Can you take a look when you get a chance? I read the text 3 times, then deleted it without responding. Tuesday, my phone rang 14 times between 8:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. I was at work so I couldn't answer anyway, but I watched each call go to voicemail and felt this weird sense of calm, like watching a machine break down exactly the way you predicted it would. Wednesday, I got a voicemail from Mom. I saved it, but didn't listen to it yet. I wanted to see how far this would escalate before I heard their version of events. Thursday, Vanessa called. I was getting ready for work, so I answered because I was genuinely curious what story they'd told her. Marcus, what the hell is going on? Mom called me last night crying, saying, "You've cut off all their credit cards, and they can't buy groceries." That's not exactly what happened, I said, putting her on speaker while I made coffee. Then what did happen, she said. They went to Kroger yesterday, and all their cards got declined. Dad tried to get gas, and the same thing happened. They tried to use cards that are linked to my accounts. Yes. So you did cut them off, Vanessa. Those were my cards on my accounts that I pay for. Silence for a few seconds. But they need those cards. For what? For groceries, for gas, for basic living expenses. They can buy groceries and gas with their own money. What do you mean their own money? The question hung in the air like a bad smell. I mean the money they earn from their jobs. You know, like adults do. Another long silence. Marcus, you can't just abandon them like this. They're our parents. Abandon, interesting word choice. Not stop enabling or set boundaries. Abandon. Vanessa, can I ask you something? What did you know they've been keeping spreadsheets about me? Tracking what excuses work best to get money out of me. I heard her sharp intake of breath. I don't know what you're talking about. Check your sent emails from September 18th. Subject line retiming. The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. Finally, that's not what that was about. Then what was it about? We were worried about you. You seemed stressed about money, and we didn't want you to feel pressured. Vanessa? I interrupted her before she could get into full bullshit mode. I read the emails, all of them. I know about the spreadsheets. I know about the strategy sessions. I know Tyler never applied for financial aid, and that you've never paid back a single dollar of the money I've given you. More silence. Vanessa, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I'm done. I'm not angry. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just done. They told me not to come to Thanksgiving because I was too difficult, for asking where my money was going. So I took them at their word. I'm no longer part of their financial planning. But Marcus, they need to figure it out like everyone else in the world does. I hung up and finished getting ready for work. My phone buzzed with 3 more calls before I left the house, but I ignored them all. By the end of the week, I'd heard from 3 aunts, 2 uncles, my grandmother, and Tyler's girlfriend's mother, who I'd met exactly twice. My parents had clearly decided that public pressure was their best strategy for getting me back in line. The funny thing was, every conversation followed the same script. They'd all heard that I'd suddenly and cruelly abandoned my parents over some minor disagreement. None of them knew about the 6 years of financial support. None of them knew about the manipulation or the planning. My parents had painted themselves as the victims of my sudden, inexplicable cruelty, which told me everything I needed to know about what came next. The calls and texts and Facebook messages were getting absolutely ridiculous. My phone was buzzing constantly with relatives I barely spoke to, all lecturing me about family loyalty and how disappointed they were in my behavior. My family had apparently launched a full-scale propaganda campaign, telling everyone that I'd cut them off without warning over some petty argument. According to the story, making the rounds I was having some kind of breakdown. Midlife crisis maybe, or I was under the influence of my girlfriend Jessica, who they'd apparently decided was manipulating me against my family. The version I heard from my cousin Beth was that I'd refused to help with a small emergency expense, and then flew into a rage and cut off all contact. None of it was true, obviously, but it was believable enough that people were buying it. Because who would believe that parents would systematically manipulate and financially exploit their own son? That was the kind of thing that happened to other people, not to nice middle-class families from Michigan. That's when I realized they were never going to tell the truth. They were going to paint me as the villain, no matter what happened, no matter how reasonable I tried to be. So I decided to give them something to really be upset about. I spent a weekend putting together a document. 17 pages meticulously organized with charts and graphs and color coding, every payment I'd made for the past 6 years, every emergency that had turned out to be routine expenses they just didn't want to budget for, every lie I could document with email evidence or bank records. The mortgage payments, $1,823 per month for 72 months, total $138,456. The utilities averaged $300 per month for 72 months. Total $21,600. The credit card bills, groceries, gas, miscellaneous expenses, total $52,000. Tyler's fake financial aid crisis, $39,000 over 6 semesters. Vanessa's business loan defaults $25,300 across 3 failed ventures. Car repairs, home repairs, medical bills, and various emergencies. $22,000. Grand total, $298 to $356. I'd been lowballing it before. It wasn't $138,000. It was almost $300,000. But the real kicker was the email evidence. I included screenshots of their conversations about managing me, strategizing about what sob stories would work best, even joking about how guilty they could make me feel. Vanessa to mom. The thing about Marcus is he can't stand seeing anyone upset, especially women. If you cry, he'll literally throw money at the problem just to make it stop. Mom to Vanessa, I've learned not to ask for specific amounts. Let him offer a number, first then act like it's not quite enough. He'll usually increase it on his own. Tyler to dad, Marcus never asks for receipts if you mention it's related to school. I think he assumes education expenses are automatically legitimate. It was all there. Years of evidence that they saw me as a resource to be managed and exploited. I sent it to everyone. Every relative who'd called to lecture me, every family friend who'd reached out on Facebook, everyone who'd heard their version of events. I didn't include a long explanation or justification, just a simple cover note, since there seems to be some confusion about recent events. I wanted to provide the full context. The attached documentation shows the complete financial history of my relationship with my parents and siblings over the past 6 years. I'm not angry, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm just done being manipulated by people who see me as a resource rather than a family member. The numbers speak for themselves. The response was immediate and intense. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with texts, but not the angry lectures I'd been getting all week. These were completely different. Uncle Robert, Jesus Christ. Marcus, I had no idea it was this bad. I'm sorry I called you last week. I take back everything I said. Cousin Rachel. Holy shit, I just read this whole thing. This is absolutely insane. I can't believe they kept spreadsheets. Aunt Linda, your parents told us you'd refuse to help with grocery money and cut them off out of spite. This is completely different? I'm so sorry. Even my grandmother called to apologize, which nearly made me cry because she'd been so disappointed in me before. But the best response came from my dad's brother, Uncle Robert. He called me directly at 6:30 p.m. Marcus, it's Robert. I just finished reading your email. Hey, Uncle Robert, I could hear the exhaustion in my own voice. I owe you an apology, a big one. Your dad called me 3 weeks ago, asking if I could loan them money for their mortgage payment. Said you'd refuse to help because you were mad about some family drama and being vindictive. My stomach dropped. How much did he ask for? $2,000. I told him I didn't have that kind of cash lying around, but I felt terrible about it. Kept thinking about how I should have found a way to help. Now I'm wondering, Uncle Robert, can I ask you something? How long has Dad been asking family members for money? Long pause, Marcus. I think you and I need to have a much longer conversation. We talked for 2 hours. Turns out my dad had been borrowing money from various family members for over a year. Small amounts, usually a few hundred here and there. Always with some story about temporary cash flow issues or unexpected expenses. Always with the promise that he just needed a little help until I came through again. My parents hadn't just been using me. They'd been using my reputation as the reliable, financially stable son to scam other family members too. They'd been telling people that I was their primary support, so any temporary shortfall was just a timing issue. That would be resolved as soon as I transferred money. Uncle Robert had lent them almost $3,500 over the past year. Cousin Jennifer had loaned them $900 for car repairs. Aunt Carol had been buying their groceries once a month. Because Dad told her I was traveling for work and couldn't transfer money right away. They had been running a sophisticated con game, using my name and reputation to extract money from our entire extended family. That night, I updated my document with Uncle Robert's information and details from the other family members who started reaching out with their own stories. I sent a revised version to everyone with a shorter cover note. Additional information has come to light regarding the scope of the financial dependence. It appears my parents have been borrowing money from multiple family members over the past year, using my supposed support as justification for temporary shortfalls. I encourage anyone who has loaned money to my parents in the past year to compare notes. My phone was quiet for exactly 7 hours after I sent that email. Then all hell broke loose. Then 4 weeks later, my family invited me to dinner so we can talk things through. Mom's voice was different, smaller, like her manipulation tactics weren't working anymore. Jessica convinced me to go for closure, but I went prepared with documentation and a recording app. The house looked like a performance. Good china candles, fresh flowers. Everyone was there, trying to act normal, but the tension was suffocating. Dad cracked first. "We need to talk about this tantrum you're throwing." Tantrum. I was 36, and he called my financial independence a tantrum. "You humiliated us," Mom said, airing our private business to the whole family. Not, "We're sorry we lied," or "We're sorry we took advantage." Just anger that I'd exposed them. I pulled out my folders. "Vanessa, how much of the $2,300 I covered for your business ventures have you paid back?" She went pale. "We never said those were loans." "You're right. But when you tell people I've cut you off, what exactly am I cutting you off from?" Silence. "Tyler, how much of your college tuition money did you actually spend on college?" My brother wouldn't look at me. He'd bought a $16,000 car while I covered his actual tuition. "We're family," Mom said. "Family helps each other. When's the last time anyone here helped me with anything? When's the last time anyone even asked if I needed help?" That's when I told them about Uncle Robert, Cousin Jennifer, Aunt Carol, all the other family members they'd been hitting up for money, using my reputation as collateral. "You didn't just take advantage of me. You used my reputation to take advantage of other people. Here's what's gonna happen," I said, standing up. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm tired. Tired of being the family ATM. I'm out permanently. Family means people who care about your well-being, not just your bank account." As I headed for the door, Mom called after me. "So what now?" I turned back one last time. "Now you figure out who you are when I'm not paying for it." 9 months later, the silence was different. Not weaponized, just quiet. They were actually managing. Dad found full-time work. Mom got a part-time job at Target. They sold the house and moved to an apartment they could afford on warehouse and retail wages. Vanessa's marketing business folded, and she got a customer service job at an insurance company. Apparently, she's good at it and happier. Tyler finished school, became a junior accountant, sold his Mustang for a used Honda, and learned to budget. They're all still mad at me, but they're functioning independently for the first time in their lives. Jessica and I bought a house. Nothing fancy, but my name was the only one on the deed. It felt incredible. 4 months ago, I got a handwritten letter from Dad, short and awkward. "We are managing our finances on our own now, and have learned to live within our means. I hadn't realized how much we had come to depend on your help. I understand if you need more time." It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't an attack either. I read it 3 times, then put it in my desk drawer. I didn't write back, not because I was angry, but because forgiveness isn't a performance. I realized something important. I don't miss them. I miss the idea of them. Parents who are proud of me, siblings who enjoy my company. But I don't miss the actual reality of walking on eggshells, guilt trips, and feeling like a disappointment for asking reasonable questions. The quiet in my life isn't empty. It's peaceful.